Hi there, and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Therapist podcast. I'm your host, Shulamit Ber-Lev Tov, and I'm the Entrepreneur's Therapist. You can call me Shula for short, and my pronouns are she, hers. This is the podcast for business owners, solopreneurs, micropreneurs, freelancers, and self-employed folks who want support for riding the emotional roller coaster of running a business. I'm on a mission to mitigate the entrepreneurial mental health crisis that the business press has been talking about since at least 2018. And if you note, that's pre-COVID. And to transform the entrepreneurial ecosystem to include the whole human founder as a business priority. I do that through this podcast, of course, and also through speaking, teaching, and consulting, and by supporting women business owners one-to-one to prevent burnout and preserve their peace of mind as they ride the emotional roller coaster of running a business in an era of relentless stressors that can make you want to lose your crap on the daily. This podcast is being recorded on lands that have been stewarded for 10,000 years and to this day by the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Land acknowledgements are calls to action from Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and this is your call to action to find out at least whose land you are on and share that with others, and to take what other actions you can toward reconciliation, because the harms caused by settler colonialism are ongoing. Today's topic is high-functioning anxiety. So, do any of these signs ring a bell for you? You're a high achiever. You're proactive. You're organized. You're a people pleaser. You have difficulty saying no. You have difficulty maintaining boundaries. You don't know how much is enough. You're afraid of failing. You have insomnia. You have digestive problems like nausea, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation in the TMI department, but it's real. Difficulty resting, relaxing, or slowing down, or taking time off, or maybe constant worry. So these might be attributable to a number of factors. They might even look like the everyday experience of a business owner rather than high-functioning anxiety, but sometimes it can be all of this. And either way, there are a number of tools you can use to help yourself. But first, let's make a distinction between the so-called high-functioning anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder. What we call anxiety occurs along a spectrum, and we have the day-to-day worries or anxiousness that we feel around stresses. We might have more ongoing anxiety and even panic attacks. And so to distinguish, let me talk first about generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. This is characterized by persistent and excessive worry that interferes with a person's functioning in their life, work, and relationships. So this is the main issue, is that it interferes with your functioning. So symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder can include persistent worry or fears that are out of proportion to the situation, planning for all possible worst case outcomes, perceiving even neutral situations and events as threatening, indecisiveness, inability to set aside or let go of a worry, inability to relax, feeling restless and feeling keyed up or on edge, difficulty concentrating, maybe your mind goes blank, or you're having racing thoughts. So in the show notes, which are linked in the description, there is an excerpt showing the diagnostic criteria for generalized anxiety disorder, and you can take a peek at that for yourself. Some physical symptoms might include fatigue, trouble sleeping, muscle tension or muscle aches, trembling in your body, feeling twitchy, nervousness or easily startled, sweating, all these kinds of things. You can experience any or all of them without necessarily being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. But again, if you experience these, if you have these experiences to the degree that it interferes with your functioning in your life, work, and relationships, then it's time to maybe talk to your doctor about being screened so that you can put a name to what you're experiencing and then develop some strategies to address them beyond what I'm going to offer you here. People experiencing anxiety can feel paralyzed, and your fears and worries can lead to a kind of freeze state, like the proverbial deer in the headlights. But unlike with many people experiencing the range of anxiety right up to and including generalized anxiety disorder, there is a group of people who tend toward action as a way to manage their anxiety. As a result, the popular term high functioning anxiety evolved to capture that tendency toward action. So it's important to recognize that this term high functioning anxiety is not a official diagnosis. It's a descriptor that for this impulse to take action as a way to alleviate your anxious feelings, especially around your business. High functioning anxiety doesn't show up in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is the one that guides the diagnosis of mental health disorders. But business owners and entrepreneurs can experience many of the symptoms associated with generalized anxiety disorder without necessarily having them raised to the level of a diagnosis where they interfere with your functioning in your life, work, or relationships. So keep in mind that distinction. It has to do with whether or not it interferes with your functioning, and that's when it becomes something to investigate as a possible diagnosis. But this tendency toward action as a way of managing or appeasing your anxious thoughts and feelings can be an advantage if you're a business owner. Because when you have a tendency toward action, people see you as productive and successful in business. And perhaps on the outside, you appear to have your crap together because you're always on the ball. You never miss a deadline. You never fall short on a project. In fact, you may often over deliver and before the due date. But on the inside, you feel like a mess. You're agitated. Your thoughts are racing. You feel driven. You're unable to relax, rest, or pause. You have an inner sense of constant vigilance and this worry or this sense that you've forgotten something or something's about to go wrong. And yet on the outside, you're able to perform. One downside of this experience is that no one would believe anything could be wrong because you come across as being fine, right? You produce, you meet deadlines, you do your work, your business is thriving. To the outside appearances, you seem like you're really highly productive and organized, and that makes it hard to ask for help. It also isolates you and keeps you thinking that your challenges are your fault, which they're not. Another disadvantage is that you keep on revving your engine this hard, the chronic wear and tear on your system will begin to show, and instead of anxiety working in your favor, it can start to cause problems. The good news is that you can use your impulse to action while at the same time working with your mind to help yourself feel calmer. And this will help you access your CEO self, your executive functioning that you need in your business so that you can show up for yourself and your business as the strong, competent, capable person you are at your core, underneath all the anxiety and worries. So, if you're not going to take action in your business to appease or alleviate this part of you that feels so anxious and is like saying, you got to do something, you got to keep working, you have to do this. First of all, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, let me just say it's no wonder you feel anxious. The stressors of running a business can be overwhelming. And if you want some validation around what are the stressors that you're facing, I've put a link in the show notes so that you can read more about that. But business owners, just to give you an overview, I'm sure you know this, and just to name it, business owners experience enormous demands on their time, energy, and cognitive capacity. And demand that exceeds your capacity to respond to it leads to stress. And stress leads to the fight or flight response in the nervous system and in the body, leading to feelings of anxiety. Sometimes your anxiety is legitimate in that there are many real risks and thus many worries associated with owning a business. You might worry, can you cover your costs this month? Can you pay your contractors or your associates or your employees? Can you pay the rent for your office if you have one? Will you be able to pay yourself? Will there be any client complaints? Will there be any last minute changes to a contract? It goes on and on and on. So the first step in dealing with anxiety, these kinds of worries, whether it's high functioning anxiety or otherwise, is to validate your emotions. So many of the clients that I work with will criticize themselves for feeling anxious, but as I mentioned, there are really good reasons for you to be feeling anxious. So you could take a breath and pause, maybe place a gentle hand on your heart space and take a breath and allow your breath to just flow. Just placing your awareness on it and not forcing it to change. And then you can say to yourself something like, well, yeah, these are high stakes. Of course, parts of me are anxious. Or, yeah, things are overwhelming right now. No wonder I'm feeling anxious. The irony is that when you acknowledge what's happening, things often settle down because our insides are a lot like little kids. They will yell and make trouble until they can get your attention. And the very reason they are yelling is to get your attention. And so the longer you ignore them, the louder they get. But once you turn toward them, they can relax. So just like warning lights on a dashboard, your insides are letting you know something needs care. That anxious voice is there asking you to pay attention because there's gold in them there hills, so to speak. There's information. Your body, your organism has wisdom there. It's coming in a way that's hard to tolerate, that we might dislike and want to turn away, that we think is bad or have been told is bad. But when we turn toward our anxious feelings, we often find that there's some information there that can be helpful to us. And so after you've taken a moment to say, yes, of course I'm anxious. Who wouldn't be anxious under these circumstances? Then you can be curious. What is this worried part trying to say? From their point of view, worried parts are just trying to help us out. Now, of course, from our point of view, they're not very effective at it, but they do have something important to contribute. Especially in a high-risk situation, it's important to be alert. Worried parts want us to be prepared. So after validation, you can acknowledge that the worried parts are trying to help you stay safe or avoid problems by engaging your curiosity. You can say, again, place a gentle hand, and you can say, I'm curious. I wonder, is this something I can do anything about? And then you can pause and wait to see what happens. And if the answer is yes, then you can identify what it is that's needed. What is the situation? What is the worry about that situation? And what action can you take? Maybe you can add the tasks to your project management system so you can trust that they'll be taken care of. You can delegate the actions that need to be taken, or you can maybe take a step right now to address the worry. So these are the kinds of helpful actions that the worried parts inside of you might be wanting to share with you. So go ahead. Sometimes, though, the anxiety can be overwhelming and it's hard to figure that out by yourself. It's hard to listen to your insides with curiosity because the criticizing part, you should do this and you should do that, may come in. And so it can be helpful to call your biz bestie, to reach out to your therapist, to talk to your business coach, or to ask for some one-on-one peer listening from someone in your mastermind group, and ask for their help in identifying and prioritizing the concrete actions that you can take to address the situation at hand. If the answer is no, after you've paused and validated yourself and your emotions and checked inside to see if there's action you can take in this situation, and the answer is no, this is a situation over which you don't have control, then here I'm going to offer you some other coping tools that can help with the anxious parts. Things like replaying yesterday's conversations in your head and dwelling on catastrophic outcomes isn't helpful. But solving a problem, like in the step above, is helpful. But if you're going over the same things repeatedly with the same thoughts looping over and over, this is a sign that you are doing what's called rumination. Engaging with these thoughts keeps them going. But engaging with the body can be a way out. An anxious body with energy that needs to be worn off can contribute to an anxious mind. So if you've done all you can, as in the step above, you've taken the actions that you've needed to take, or if there's nothing you can do about the situation because it's out of your control, movement can help get the worries out. And I've included a link in the show notes with some information and prompts and resources around what kind of movement can be helpful. Mood induction is another way to change the channel, so to speak, in your mind. And I've included a link in the show notes for information about mood induction if you're curious. But mood induction, simply put, is any method that produces any kind of change in mood, negative or positive, by selectively reminding you of something pleasant or unpleasant. Now, in this case, you want to induce a positive change in your mood. And the easiest way to do this is to put on your favorite happy song and sing or dance along. So I invite you, if you're rolling your eyes and going, oh, come on. If you think about your favorite song, it's maybe 3 to 5 minutes long. You can easily put your headphones on, silence your notifications and put your headphones on or your earbuds in and take 2 to 5 minutes to play this song. You might move around in your chair. You might stand up and move around in your office. You could go to the bathroom and do this in a private place where people aren't going to think you're a little cuckoo. You can do it in your car. You could go outside for a moment and walk around the building or your home with this song playing. A happy or happier mind means that the body is starting to engage the relaxation response, gearing down from the messages in the mind and body that you have to do something and allowing your brain to focus your energy on the things you need to do to be able to take the next step in your business. It only takes 3 minutes or so to engage with music, but you're more likely to find yourself refreshed and refocused afterwards than if you continue engaging with the looping thoughts. And you can do an experiment for yourself and see what happens. Notice if what I'm suggesting is true. Another option with the worried looping kind of thoughts, the anxious thoughts, is an exercise called letting it be. This is adapted from a book called Brain Lock, Free Yourself from Obsessive Compulsive Behavior by Jeffrey Schwartz and Beverly Bayette. And it's linked in the show notes if you want more information. Engaging with these looping thoughts, and as you get to know your anxiety better, it's helpful to track what are the thoughts that keep coming up. Or just track the thoughts that are coming up and you will notice patterns. There are certain thoughts that repeat themselves in a really kind of rigid way over and over and over again. And this is one of the ways in which you can determine what's the difference between the actual worries and the looping repetitive thoughts, because the looping repetitive thoughts come back over and over and over again and are the same. But engaging with these looping thoughts as if they are real and meaningful can be exhausting, and so can fighting them off. But as I said, overthinking, looping thoughts, and rumination are different from the kind of thinking that's needed for problem solving. So sometimes letting the worry part of your mind do it alone to do its thing in the background can be helpful. You can let it be and go on with your day or the task at hand. So here are the steps to do that. And again, you don't have to worry about taking notes. It's linked in the description in the show notes. The first step is to label what's happening. Call it what it is, looping thoughts or rumination. This way you clearly recognize what's upsetting you for exactly what it is. And this prevents you from being tricked by the anxious part's belief that looping thoughts, rumination, or overthinking will help you be prepared. It's mistaken about that. The anxious part is mistaken. And so instead of engaging with these thoughts, you can say, again, pausing and taking a breath and maybe placing a gentle hand, oh, yeah, these are my looping thoughts and they're bothering me. Or, oh, right, I'm ruminating and this is making me feel bad. Then the question arises, why is this happening? The second step is answering that question. These thoughts are bothering me because something in me is feeling anxious. Its job is to tell me all the things I should be worried about. And that's just what it does. I have anxiety, I have anxious parts, and looping thoughts is one of the symptoms of anxiety, or looping thoughts is what anxious parts do. Once you realize this, and again, a gentle hand might help to say these things slowly and gently to yourself, maybe even closing your eyes. And then once you've taken this step, and it's kind of sunk in that, oh yeah, this is just what happens. This is just what my anxious parts do. Then you can ask with curiosity, well, what can I do about these thoughts that are bothering me? So as above, you've already discerned whether these are looping thoughts or worries that are there to help you, specifically about which you can take action in a situation that's in your control. But if it's out of your control and you're going through this process, then the question, what can I do about these thoughts that are bothering me? The answer to that is step 3. What you can do is turn your attention to something engaging, uplifting, or beneficial. So, like I said, it can help to move your body, but you could also hug someone, take a brief walk, call a friend for a fun chat, have a soothing cup of tea, maybe using mood induction, as long as it involves, even only briefly, changing your context and engaging your senses. And this is the key aspect of refocusing, changing your context and engaging your senses. This step involves making a choice over and over again to support yourself in directing your attention away from the looping thoughts and towards something different. By refusing to take the looping thoughts at face value, you can learn to let them be, and they can just run in the background. Oh, yeah, that's my anxiety doing what it does, while you do something positive, helpful, and constructive. The practice ongoingly of refocusing consistently will help build new neural pathways, creating more constructive habits that help you face and solve problems more effectively. And like, what business owner doesn't need that, right? It's really important to notice that this three-step process is different from stopping the thoughts or telling yourself not to worry. It's another method of acknowledging and allowing them, your thoughts and your worried parts, letting them be just exactly the way they are without having them dominate your awareness or guide your behavior. Self-affirmation can also be helpful. After you've acknowledged the worried parts, you can reassure them with helpful self-affirmations. Now, as always, I've got some nuance for you. This is not the same as toxic positivity. And if you're curious about toxic positivity or my take on it, it's linked in the show notes. Toxic positivity is intended to bypass, in other words, avoid or suppress so-called negative feelings. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Who wants to feel these so-called negative, in quotation marks, feelings? But as I mentioned above, if we suppress or ignore them, they're going to come back louder. So it's important to note that self-affirmation, like I'm offering you here, is a second step in healthy positivity. The first step in healthy positivity is acknowledgement. So once you've said, no wonder you're worried, then you can talk to yourself and your worried parts reassuringly. It's okay to be worried. You're not alone. I'm here with you. I've got your back. And the tone is, we're in this together and I care for you, rather than, I don't like you, go away, you're bothering me, you're annoying me, right? It's no wonder you're worried. It's okay. You're not alone. I'm here. Invalidating your emotions, dismissing them like, I don't like you, go away. Ugh, anxiety, why are you here even? Right? Invalidating them, that has an invalidating impact, that kind of self-talk. And it complicates the problem. It makes things worse because you know what it's like when somebody invalidates what you're feeling. If you've shared something vulnerable with them and they're like, oh, pull up your socks, you'll be fine, right? It just feels yucky. And the same thing happens inside us when we talk to ourselves this way. It feels yucky. Letting your parts and yourself know that you're paying attention and taking care goes a long way to increasing your resilience and your capacity to solve problems. And again, if you're having a reaction to the word resilience, there's a link in the show notes to what I'm talking about when I use the word resilience. If you want support for implementing any of these strategies, or you want to create a proactive mental health plan so you can set the foundation for sustainable success and show up fully as your CEO self in your business, I invite you to consider my self-guided virtual retreat. You can create your own customized mental and emotional plan, a plan for your mental and emotional well-being to keep your CEO self in the driver's seat so you don't flip your lid and blow up your business, do something rash, right? When the crap hits the fan. Like we've just talked about today, the anxieties and stresses and worries of running a business can have an impact on you. It can run down your mental health. And as whole humans who own small businesses, a mental health plan should be part of your business strategy. You can boost your business with a mental health plan when you purchase the self-guided mental health plan virtual retreat today. $99 US includes the workshop recording, an enhanced PDF transcript, and worksheets. The link is entrepreneurstherapist.click/MH plan, and it's also in the description. Thanks so much for listening. I'm the Entrepreneur's Therapist, and I'm on a mission to mitigate the entrepreneurial mental health crisis and transform the entrepreneurial ecosystem to include the whole human in business. If you've got something valuable from this episode, you can support my mission by sharing with friends you think need to hear this. Subscribing, rating, and reviewing also helps mitigate the entrepreneurial mental health crisis by making it possible for this podcast to reach more stressed out entrepreneurs who need support, validation, and tools, like we've talked about today, to help them care for their mental and emotional well-being in an era of relentless stressors that can make you want to lose your crap on the daily. I look forward to connecting with you next time. So long.